Every human being was connected through something called the unified mesh, a great web of thoughts, emotions, and memories that linked every person on Earth. It was created to end loneliness, to make everyone feel loved, known, and understood. Every feeling, from joy to sadness, moved through that invisible network shared by billions. There were no secrets anymore. No silence. No me and you and only us. For most people, this was peace. For Dr. Ilara Wynne, it was noise. Ilara was a cognitive architect, one of the specialists who maintained the emotional balance of the mesh. Her job was to keep the flow of feelings steady so no large wave of sadness or anger overwhelmed the system. She had worked for the Mesh Council for 10 years, and everyone praised her calm, her kindness, and her understanding heart. But deep inside, Ilara was tired. Every night she came home to her small apartment in the sky towers of New Geneva, and the hum of the city was not just sound as it was thought. She could still hear everyone. The laughter, the fear, the endless chatter of a world too connected to rest. Sometimes she would sit by the glass wall and look at the stars, wondering what silence felt like. True silence, the kind that wasn't full of other people's dreams. One evening, while she was checking the emotional harmony files of the mesh, she noticed something strange. A small gap, a quiet space in the network, like a tiny black dot in a sea of glowing light. It wasn't supposed to exist. Every mind on Earth was mapped, every thought linked. Yet here was a small area with no sound, no emotion, nothing. It felt like peace. And curious, Ilara traced the signal to find its origin. The trace led her deep into the southern archive layer, a place where old digital memories and unused connections were stored. The deeper she went, the quieter it became. She could almost hear her own breathing, not the combined breath of billions, but her own. Her heart beat faster. For the first time in her life, she was alone, completely alone, inside the mesh. And then she saw him. A man was sitting under a digital tree. He was writing something on a small pad, actual words, not thought patterns. His presence was calm and steady, unlike anything she had felt before. His name tag shimmered faintly above his head, Jonas Rhee, systems poet. He looked up when he noticed her, and his smile was soft and real. "You found it," he said. Ilara blinked. "Found what?" "The quiet," Jonas replied. "I call this place the garden. It's a spot where the mesh doesn't reach. I think it's an old server fragment still alive. Nobody comes here except me." Ilara's mind buzzed with questions. "How did you find it? Why is it still running?" Jonas shrugged lightly. "I didn't find it. It found me. I was writing one day and suddenly the noise stopped. I could think without everyone else thinking with me." Ilara sat beside him. The digital tree above them rustled in a silent wind. She could hear the faint rhythm of her heart. It felt strange and beautiful. "You're not connected," she whispered. "I am," Jonas said, "but not here. Here, I'm just myself." She looked around. The place was simple. A plain meadow, a tree, a river that moved like light. No ads, no data streams, no emotion feeds. Just space. Ilara tried to open a connection channel. Nothing. The mesh could not reach her thoughts here. She was cut off, and yet she didn't feel afraid. She felt free. For a while, they sat together in silence. No shared words, no mental waves, just presence. Ilara realized that she didn't know what to say. In a world where everyone's feelings were known instantly, she had forgotten how to use her own voice. Jonas broke the quiet first. "You look like someone who hasn't rested in years." She smiled softly. "I suppose I haven't," he chuckled. "Then rest. You're safe here." Ilara began to visit the garden every night. During the day, she worked as usual, calming global emotional surges, adjusting empathy circuits, smiling at people who always knew her thoughts before she spoke them. But in the evening, she went back to Jonas's quiet place. Each time, she felt lighter. They spoke about simple things: books, rain, music, dreams. Jonas showed her how to write with her hands, using a pen and a pad he had programmed into the garden. She laughed at her uneven letters. It had been centuries since people had written anything by hand. When she told him about her work, he listened carefully. He didn't interrupt, didn't send emotional feedback. He just listened, and that simple act felt like magic. One evening she asked, "Why do you stay here alone?" Jonas smiled a little sadly. "I think humans need both connection and distance. We forgot that silence can be gentle, not empty. Out there, he gestured toward the endless sky of data light. Everyone is afraid of being alone. But maybe being alone sometimes helps us understand what it means to be together. Ilara thought about that for a long time. She had spent her whole life keeping humanity connected, making sure no one ever felt lonely. But maybe in doing that they had lost something precious, the ability to hear themselves. The garden was changing her. Slowly, quietly, when she returned to her work, she noticed small things. How people's emotions felt heavier than before. How many minds were tired even though the mesh was supposed to bring peace. She began to wonder if the world had grown too crowded, even for love. Weeks passed. Ilara and Jonas built little things in the garden. He taught her how to grow digital trees that bloomed when someone was quiet for a full minute. She created rivers that shimmered when someone whispered a word instead of sharing a thought pulse. The garden became a living poem, not made of code, but of calm. But one night, as she entered the network, a warning flashed on her terminal. Unregistered anomaly detected in unauthorized silence node. Her heart froze. The mesh had found it. She hurried to the garden. Jonas was already there, standing by the glowing river. "They've seen the signal," he said softly. "They'll try to close it. Can we hide it?" She asked. "Maybe," Jonas replied. "But we must be careful. The Council believes every disconnection is dangerous. They won't understand this place." Ilara nodded slowly. "We'll make it invisible." Together they began to weave protective code. Nothing harmful. Just quiet threads that disguised the garden's frequency inside the natural noise of the mesh. It was like hiding a whisper in a thunderstorm. As they worked, Ilara realized how steady Jonas's hands were. He wasn't afraid. His calmness flowed into her like light. When the final line of code was placed, Jonas looked up at the digital sky and smiled. "Even if they find it someday, we've proven something." "What's that?" she asked. "That humans can still create peace, even inside a world that never sleeps." The system pulse outside the garden flickered, then went quiet again. The anomaly warning disappeared. For now, they were safe. Ilara looked around their little world, the soft trees, the calm river, the still air, and felt tears fill her eyes. "This place shouldn't exist," she said. "And yet it feels more real than anything I've ever known." Jonas smiled. "Maybe that's because it's made of what we've lost: silence, patience, time." She laughed softly. "You sound like a poet." "I am one," he said with a grin. "And you, Dr. Wynne, are my favorite mystery." For a moment neither spoke. The wind moved through the leaves with a quiet whisper, and Ilara felt something gentle grow inside her. Not the shared empathy of billions, but a small private warmth that belonged only to her. In that moment, she knew something had changed forever. When she left the garden that night, she paused before disconnecting. The mesh came rushing back, millions of thoughts, memories, feelings. But now, beneath it all, she could sense a faint hum of quiet, like a heartbeat under the noise. She smiled, because now she knew. Somewhere in the endless world of minds, there was a place that belonged only to two hearts, resting gently in silence. And for the first time in her life, Dr. Ilara Wynne whispered a small thank you, not into the mesh, but into the quiet. The days passed quietly, though the world outside was never quiet. Dr. Ilara Wynne returned to her daily life in New Geneva, but her mind was no longer the same. Every morning, she joined the global network, the unified mesh, and handled streams of emotions from billions of people. She balanced sadness with comfort, loneliness with connection, and joy with calm. But now, underneath all that noise, she could still feel it, the soft heartbeat of silence that belonged to the garden. No one else could hear it. It was her secret, shared only with Jonas Rhee, the systems poet. Each night, when the city lights dimmed and the air shimmered with thought waves, Ilara returned to the garden. There she found peace waiting for her, gentle, warm, and still. Jonas was usually already there, sitting beneath the glowing tree, writing with his digital pen on a floating notebook. He always looked calm, as if the noise of the world couldn't touch him. "You came," he said every time with a smile. "Of course," Ilara would reply. "It's the only place where I can think my own thoughts." Together they would talk, build, and dream. The garden had grown. The single tree was now a small forest. Each tree represented a different kind of silence. Deep silence, soft silence, creative silence. Rivers of light flowed between them, moving to the rhythm of breathing instead of data. Alara loved the river that rippled when someone laughed out loud. Jonas said it was proof that joy didn't need to be broadcast to everyone to be real. He was right. The mesh outside had taught people to share everything. When someone felt happy, everyone felt it. When someone cried, the world wept with them. But the cost of this perfect connection was individual space, the place inside where thoughts grew before they were shared. Alara began to see that humans were losing that private space. Without silence, imagination had no place to rest. One evening, as they watched the digital stars above the garden, Alara said softly, "Jonas, do you think we're wrong to hide this place?" Jonas didn't answer at once. He placed his pen down and looked up at the stars. "No," he said finally. "We're not hiding it. We're protecting it." "From what?" "From being turned into another channel," he replied gently. "If the council discovers this place, they'll try to study it. They'll connect it to the mesh, make it part of the system, and once they do, it won't be silence anymore." Alara sighed. She knew he was right. The Council of Harmony, which managed the mesh, didn't understand quiet. To them, everything had to be connected, measured, and shared. Even peace had to be public. She looked around the garden. The trees glowed softly and the river of light curved like a smile. "I wish the world could feel this," she said. "They can," Jonas said. "But not yet. First, they have to remember that it's missing." A week later, something unexpected happened. When Alara logged into the mesh for her morning work, she noticed a faint rise in global curiosity. People were asking strange questions. Do you ever wish for silence? What does it mean to think alone? Why do we share every thought? Alara's hands trembled slightly. Somehow the feeling of the garden was leaking into the mesh, not through code, but through emotion. It was like a gentle echo spreading across the world. Jonas noticed it too. When she told him that evening, he laughed softly. "The garden has roots," he said. "Even silence can grow." Alara smiled, though she also felt worried. If the council traced this emotional shift, they might find where it came from. Still, she couldn't help feeling hopeful. For the first time in years, people were questioning the noise. They were beginning to notice how tired they were of endless sharing. A few days later, Alara received a message from the Council of Harmony. They wanted to see her. Inside the grand silver building, thousands of minds connected silently, their emotions flowing in perfect rhythm. Alara stood in front of the council chamber, feeling small. The central voice spoke in her thoughts. "Dr. Wynne, we have detected an unusual emotional pattern spreading through the mesh. It is not sadness or joy. It feels like absence, like quiet. Do you know anything about this phenomenon?" Alara kept her face calm. "No, counselor," she said softly. "Perhaps the system is resting after years of constant use. Maybe it's natural balance." The council seemed to consider her answer. After a long moment, the voice replied, "If balance brings peace, it will be accepted. But if it causes disconnection, it must be removed." Alara bowed and left. Her heart was racing. That night, she went straight to the garden. Jonas was waiting by the river, his notebook glowing faintly in the soft light. "They asked you about it, didn't they?" he said quietly. "Yes," Alara replied. "They think the world is too quiet." Jonas smiled sadly. "The irony is beautiful." Alara sat beside him. The air here was sweet and still. She could almost forget the danger. "What if they find us?" she whispered. "Then we show them what this place means," Jonas said. "Maybe they'll understand. But what if they don't?" Jonas looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were calm, steady. "Then at least we will have tried, and we will know that humans are still capable of creating peace even in a world full of noise." Days turned into weeks. The garden continued to change. New areas appeared, fields of quiet blue light, clouds that responded to thoughts of gratitude, soft rain that fell only when someone remembered kindness. The place was alive, but not like other digital creations. It seemed to grow from emotion, not code. Sometimes Alara and Jonas would walk through the forest in silence. Sometimes they would talk for hours. Each moment felt real, gentle, and human. Outside, the world was changing too. The council couldn't explain the wave of peace that was spreading. People began to sleep better. Fewer emotional surges occurred. The mesh felt calmer, lighter. No one knew why. Alara did. She and Jonas had planted the seed. One evening, Jonas asked, "What do you think will happen to the garden when we're gone?" Alara looked at him surprised. "Gone? Don't say that," he smiled softly. "Not gone like death. Just moved on. The world will keep changing. Maybe the mesh will dissolve one day. Maybe people will choose to disconnect again. What do you think will happen then?" Alara thought for a long time. Maybe the garden will stay. Maybe it will wait for anyone who needs silence, like a home that never closes its doors. Jonas nodded. A home between thoughts. They sat together watching the light of the digital stars fade into the endless dark. For the first time, Alara didn't feel afraid of the dark. It felt soft, alive, peaceful. The next morning, Alara checked the mesh readings again. The quiet pattern had grown. It now covered almost a third of the world's emotional field. But instead of panic, people reported feelings of comfort, patience, and calm. The Council of Harmony announced that a global balance phase had begun. They didn't know why, but they accepted it as a positive sign. Alara smiled to herself. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't need to. The world was healing itself, not through control, but through silence. When she met Jonas that night, she told him everything. He listened, then took out his notebook and wrote something down. "What are you writing?" Alara asked. "A poem," Jonas said. "For you. For the garden. For the world." He handed her the pad. The words glowed softly. In a world of endless voices, two hearts found a pause. A moment without noise, a space where peace still grows. Alara read the poem twice, feeling tears in her eyes. "It's beautiful." Jonas smiled gently. "It's true." They sat side by side, surrounded by soft light and digital trees that whispered without sound. And though the world outside was still crowded, still loud, still endlessly connected, inside the garden, time stood still. They had built a place where thoughts could rest, a place that would never belong to the noise. A private, gentle place, between minds, between hearts, between forever. Years passed quietly. The world of 2384 grew brighter, faster, and more connected. Yet beneath all that light, something gentle was blooming. The unified mesh had changed. No one could explain how or why, but people all across the planet were beginning to dream of the same peaceful place. A meadow of light, a river that moved like breath, and trees that whispered softly in silence. They didn't know its name, but when people woke, they said, "I dreamed of a quiet garden." The Council of Harmony called it the global calm phenomenon. Scientists tried to find the source, but no code, no system, no data trail could explain it. Only Dr. Alara Wynn knew, and so did Jonas Rhee. Alara was older now. Her hair had turned silver and her voice had softened. She no longer worked full-time for the Mesh Council. Instead, she taught new architects about emotional balance and human empathy. But she spoke of something the Council never did. Peace, she told her students, is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of stillness. Many of them didn't understand, but a few listened carefully, and in their eyes, Alara saw the same curiosity she once had, a quiet hunger for silence. Every night she still visited the garden. Jonas was always there. He never changed much. Digital life had slowed his aging. He still wrote poems on his pad, still smiled that same calm smile. Together they watched their hidden world grow. The garden was no longer small. It had expanded far beyond its first boundaries. Now there were valleys of soft blue mist, gentle hills where light moved like grass, and rivers that sang only when someone thought kind thoughts. It had become a living memory of everything humans had forgotten, the beauty of calm. One night, as Alara sat beside the glowing river, she noticed something strange. Tiny threads of light were floating up from the water, disappearing into the sky. They looked like sparks of thought, but slower, gentler. "What is that?" she asked softly. Jonas watched them drift away. "I think it's the garden sharing itself." "Sharing?" "Yes," he said. "When people dream of this place, it's because the garden is reaching out to them. Not through data, but through memory. It's alive in everyone now," Alara smiled. "Then it doesn't belong to us anymore." Jonas nodded. "It never did. We just found it first." They sat quietly, watching the light drift upward like silent stars. Outside, the world began to change in small but beautiful ways. People started turning off their mind links for short periods each day, something unheard of in the age of the mesh. Children began to play without streaming their emotions to everyone. Artists started painting again, using colors instead of shared emotional patterns. Even the council noticed the difference. Emotional surges became rare. Global stress levels dropped to record lows. The air, both digital and real, felt lighter. No one knew that the cause of this quiet revolution was a single forgotten place, hidden deep inside the mesh, the garden between thoughts. One afternoon, a young student named Lyra came to see Alara after class. She was bright, curious, and full of gentle energy. "Professor Wynne," she said shyly, "last night I dreamed of a forest made of light. I felt peaceful. I didn't want to leave it." "Do you know what it was?" Alara smiled softly. "Maybe you found a memory of something older than the mesh." Lyra frowned. "It felt real. I think it's inside the system somewhere." Alara placed a kind hand on the girl's shoulder. "If it was peaceful, then keep it safe in your heart. Some places are meant to stay quiet." Lyra nodded slowly. "I'll remember that." As the young woman left, Alara felt a warmth in her chest. The next generation was already hearing the whisper. The garden didn't need to be hidden anymore. It was spreading on its own, softly and kindly, just as Jonas once said. That night, Alara went to the garden again. Jonas was sitting under the first tree, the one where they had met so many years ago. He looked at her with a gentle smile. "You're quiet tonight," Alara laughed softly. "That's rare for me, isn't it?" "You've taught the world how to listen again," he said. "That's no small thing." She looked at the river of light, its glow reflecting in her eyes. "We didn't teach them. We just reminded them." Jonas closed his notebook and stood beside her. "Maybe that's what humans do best," he said. "We remember what matters, and even after we forget it for a long time." Alara looked at him, her heart full of quiet affection. "Jonas, do you ever wonder what happens to the garden when we're gone?" He thought for a moment, then smiled. "I think it stays. Maybe it becomes part of the world. Maybe one day people won't need a hidden place anymore. They'll carry the peace inside them." Alara nodded. "A private, gentle place. In every heart." Jonas reached out and took her hand, warm, steady, human. Forevermore. Years later, long after Alara and Jonas had faded from the world, people still dreamed of the garden. Children were taught about the time of quiet. Poets spoke of the place between thoughts. And although no one could prove it existed, everyone felt it. A calmness at the center of their minds, like a gentle pulse reminding them that peace was real. The mesh evolved too. It learned from the silence. Instead of broadcasting every emotion instantly, it began to create soft boundaries, spaces where thoughts could rest before being shared. Humanity rediscovered patience, reflection, and stillness. And in the background of that great digital web, hidden deep in its oldest layer, the garden still glowed, a secret heartbeat of calm. One day, centuries later, a young explorer named Nilo was tracing ancient code in the mesh archives. He was curious about the oldest systems, the ones that existed before modern upgrades. He found a strange file, unnamed, quiet, unreadable. When he opened it, he saw a single line of text. "Welcome to the garden." The world around him dissolved into light, and suddenly he stood under a glowing tree beside a soft, silver river. The air hummed gently with silence. He looked around, awed. "What is this place?" he whispered. A soft voice answered, not from a person, but from the air itself. "A memory of peace. You are safe here." Nilo sat down beneath the tree. He felt something warm in his heart. Not data, not emotion waves, but something older. He didn't know who had made this world, or when. But he felt that it was human, deeply, beautifully human. When he left, he carried the peace with him. And when he spoke to others about it, his words were calm and kind. The garden had found another keeper. And so even in a crowded world, humanity kept a space for silence. A place not made of stone or metal, but of hearts that remembered what it meant to rest. They called it many names: the gentle field, the light between minds, the forever garden, but deep down, everyone knew it was the same. A place where the noise ended and peace began, where people could be fully themselves and still feel connected, where the human spirit remembered its quiet strength. In the end, the garden was never just a hidden digital space. It was a reflection of what humanity had always been searching for: not perfection, Not endless sharing, but balance. Connection and calm. Togetherness and self. In every era, a few souls would find it again through art, kindness, or silence. They would sit beneath that quiet light and remember the two who had built it first. Dr. Alara Wynne and Jonas Rhee, the ones who proved that even in the most crowded world, two hearts could find a private, gentle place forevermore.